Have you ever been deep in a complex project when out of nowhere everything just grinds to a halt? The office internet drops, vital apps freeze up, and literally every single pair of eyes in the room turns to you with a look of pure panic. We've all been there, right? It's a super high stress, all too familiar scene, and in that exact moment, you are expected to have the answers right away. Well, today, we're taking that chaos and turning it into a totally manageable, solvable situation. Welcome to our explainer on the systematic guide to office network troubleshooting. Think of this as your definitive, go-to incident response handbook. We're going to use a logical, detective-like framework to solve pretty much any network mystery completely without breaking a sweat. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with 1, the office network panic. Then 2, scope and physical connections. And 3, speed, bandwidth, and restarts. From there, we'll dig into 4, advanced forensics. Follow up with 5, security logs and escalation. And wrap the whole thing up with 6, pro tips for network sanity.
All right, moving right into Section 1, the office network panic. Okay, let's dive right into this. The absolute baseline, our golden rule of networking is this: never assume the problem is the internet provider right out of the gate. Look, human nature makes us want to blame the ISP immediately, right? They're just the easiest scapegoat. But the reality is, in so many cases, the real issue is actually hiding right inside your own office walls. So we've got to start our search locally.
Which brings us to Section 2, scope and physical connections.
And this brilliantly illustrates what I like to call the matrix of blame. Step 1 is identifying the scope of the problem, because the scope tells us exactly which suspects to interrogate first. If only one system is affected, the culprit is highly localized. Think of faulty cable or an individual system issue. If multiple systems go down, you got to escalate your suspicion to a switch, a router, or maybe a broader bandwidth bottleneck. But if the entire office is in the dark, well then, and only then, do we start pointing fingers at the ISP or looking for a major network failure.
Once you know the scope, it's time to check the physical evidence. These are your classic Layer 1 issues. Is the Ethernet cable actually properly seated? Is there any visible damage to the wires? Are the link lights even blinking on the switch or router? It's kind of funny, really, but you'd be absolutely shocked how often a catastrophic office-wide meltdown comes down to a single loose cable that someone accidentally kicked under their desk. Always check the physical connections first.
Moving right along to Section 3, speed, bandwidth, and restarts.
Step 3 is running a quick speed test to compare your hardwired connections against your wireless ones. Now, Ethernet is famously fast and reliable. Wi-Fi, on the other hand, it's notoriously subject to interference, weak signals, or just getting overloaded by way too many connected devices. If your Ethernet is blazing fast but the Wi-Fi is crawling, boom, you've instantly isolated the wireless network as the actual culprit. Next up, steps 4 and 5, investigating bandwidth and restarting. You know, the mysterious culprit bringing down your whole network could simply be massive OS updates or a coworker streaming something right at 10 a.m. You've got to check those logs. And for step 5, we use the absolute oldest IT tactic in the book, the power cycle. Restarting your router, switch, or modem works wonders because it clears out overloaded memory and totally refreshes those connections. Sometimes you really just need to turn it off and on again.
Let's shift gears a bit. Section 4, Advanced Forensics.
Let's move to Step 6 and see how this all builds systematically. We need to eliminate deep configuration errors. Step 6, check your IP configuration for missing addresses or conflicts from the DHCP server. Step 7, check the DNS. If you can ping a raw IP address but your browsers just won't load websites, switching over to a public DNS, like 8.8.8.8, is often an absolute magic fix. Finally, Step 8, check those firewalls. You want to make absolutely sure that your security policies aren't inadvertently blocking the exact access you need to do your job.
Which takes us right into Section 5, security logs and escalation.
Step 9 is all about monitoring logs and alerts. Now, a really fascinating truth here is that sometimes what looks like a super frustrating performance issue is actually a security alert in disguise. You need to do a quick check of your cloud apps and enterprise email for things like suspicious logins or unusual activity. Sometimes that bottleneck is really just a system locking down to protect itself. So the crucial point is this. Step 10 is about escalating properly. You only call the ISP for backup after you've gathered all this concrete evidence. Don't just call them up and say, hey, the internet's broken. Collect your error messages. Gather those speed test results. Have a precise list of the affected users ready.
When you finally do pick up the phone, giving them this crystal clear, thoroughly researched detail guarantees a much, much faster resolution. Finally, we reach Section 6, Pro Tips for Network Sanity. Let's run through some battle-tested preventative measures to keep you sane next time around. First, keep spare Ethernet cables around. They're cheap, and they are absolute lifesavers when you find a damaged cord. Second, label your network devices so you aren't blindly guessing what goes where during a crisis. Third, maintain a simple, clear network diagram. Fourth, document your recurring issues and how you fix them. And finally, perhaps the most challenging tip of all, educate your users. A little bit of awareness goes a really long way in training your coworkers to be mindful of their bandwidth and to avoid running giant downloads right in the middle of peak work hours.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly it sums up our entire explainer today. Troubleshooting is not about guessing. It is about following a logical step-by-step process. True success in IT definitely doesn't come from wildly unplugging things and just hoping for the best. It comes from starting small, analyzing the scope, checking those physical layers, and advancing calmly toward the more complex checks.
Which brings me to a final, provocative question for you to really think about. Are you guessing, or are you approaching your network calmly and systematically? The next time an unexpected outage strikes your office, just take a deep breath. You now have the detective-like mindset and the exact methodology needed to solve it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you feel totally empowered to tackle that next networking mystery head-on.